everyone, I'm Ryan from 2 Car Pros, and today we're going to be taking a look at how to replace the rear differential fluid in a Ford F-150 from 2002 or anywhere in that year range listed in the title. I believe this guide will also apply to pretty much every Ford 8.8-inch rear end. There is in the 8.8 referring to the ring gear. Now, we used about 3 quarts of differential fluid when we were replacing it. That's important to know so you know how much to buy. We just bought a gallon of it and used like 3 quarters of it, so it's about 3 quarts. I would just buy the gallon, and if you have to buy it in quarts, maybe buy 4 of them and take back the one if you don't use it, because it's always a bummer to buy too little fluid and then be stuck. So, and if you have a limited slip differential, you're going to need this additive, and that is applicable to every quart you add. So there's little directions in the bottle to tell you how much to put in. This vehicle I'm working on is not a limited slip differential, so it just needs the synthetic differential fluid that we put in it, and the link is down below in the description like I say later in the video. All in all, this is a pretty approachable repair. A gasket gun does make this repair a lot easier, but you could get away with some patience and a scraper. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is on the fill port bolt, we're going to spray some WD-40. It might be a little hard to see there due to the amount of corrosion and gunk that's built up there, but we really want to bathe that with some WD-40 because we want that to come out nice and easy, so we're going to let that sit for a few minutes. Alright, so it's been about 15 minutes or so, and we are going to grab our 3/8 drive. You can have an extension on there too, and insert it into here, and then just turn. Because it's just the drive of a socket, it's not like an actual bolt that needs like a head. And there we go. We can see that the fill port comes out nice and easy, so we can clean that off and replace it when we're finished. But we're going to set it aside for now. Okay, so we're going to grab our 1/2 inch socket and remove the bolts for the differential cover. And we're going to put 2 bolts just a little bit back in on the top there, so that when we pop the cover it doesn't just fall down and make a big mess. Alright, now we're going to take a prying implement and get it in between here. There we go. Once our dribbling here has gone down to the crawl that it has, we can hold the diff cover here, remove these bolts, hand them to our lovely assistant, and then remove the cover, just like that. Oh yes, glorious. And we are just going to sit here and let it drip, because all it needs to come out. Alright, it's dribbled for a while, so now we gotta get dirty, get in there. Carb spray will work really well in this situation, but honestly getting in there with a rag and getting your hands dirty is the way to go. Alright, so what we're going to do next is you can use a scraper here if you don't have any kind of gasket gun. Just make sure you don't gall that surface too badly. You can also use some aggressive sandpaper in this situation. You just want to try to create a level surface of metal for the new gasket to adhere to. Now, if you're fortunate enough to have one of these, a gasket gun, that'll make short work of that surface and you can get on with your life. Okay, so now we have this surface nice and clean. You can go around with your finger and feel any old gasket material and remove it with either a scraper, sandpaper, or a gasket gun like I used, but this is perfect and ready for the new surface. But we're going to take the old diff cover over to the workbench and work on it. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is grab some carburetor spray and clean the backside of the cover here. You want to get this as clean as possible because look how much gunk was in there. Yuck! And that would be going into our new fluid, and that kind of eliminates the entire point of changing your differential fluid if you just let old contaminants right back in. So there's nothing really special to it, just carb spray and a rag and some time, and then this differential gasket material we're going to need to scrape off or use a gasket gun.
Okay, so we're going to take off the rest of the glue gasket material. It doesn't really look like there was a paper one from factory or anything like that. Sometimes there is, sometimes they just glue it like this. And that's this kind of situation. Alright, so what we're going to do next is take a look at our gasket here. We are going to be using this Felpro RDS 55341, link below in the description, because we have a Ford 8.8 inch, and this also works for the 8.5, I believe. So we're going to take it out of its container. Don't drop it. And we're going to make sure, double sure that it fits like that. Flip it over. Okay, it looks like the holes line up better this way. So this is the way we are going to put it on. But before we do that, we're going to need to get some silicone rubber. So this is the silicone rubber we're going to be using today. It's just GE black silicone rubber. You can get this at Home Depot. It's not very expensive. You can see that my nozzle here is rather wide, so you don't want to use too terribly much. So what I'm going to do is just put a bit on and spread it out with my finger a little bit. It's going to take some more time, but I don't want to use too much. And the tip here is that you want to spread it on the inside of the bolts, because if you put the bead on the outside of the bolts, it's not going to work. So if you have a smaller nozzle than I have, you can just go around it nice and easy and it'll look great. But you know what, I really want to use the rest of this sealer, so do that. And try to get to the middle. So you want to go like this, and then down, and then in the middle, and then down, and then in the middle. So we're going to go ahead and cut to when this is done. Alright, so now we can apply our gasket here to make sure it is in the right configuration. Once it's down, you don't want to move it around too much or cause any kind of air pocket here. So we're just going to squish that into place and wipe up any excess that may or may not happen. And for those of you worried about silicone rubber getting inside your differential, as long as it's not an absolute ton, it should be just fine. Now we're at this stage with our gasket, and the second verse is the same as the first. Add some silicone rubber here. I'm going to try to do it with the gun like this, like you're supposed to, but like I said, my nozzle is not exactly playing nice. And you just want to go on the inside of the bolt pattern, because you'll know if you went on the outside, it'll leak. Okay, so we're gonna have to do some manual adjustment there. And here's a tip for storing your silicone rubber. Go ahead and squeeze a bit out like that and store your silicone rubber vertically. So this is more or less what it should look like when you're done. It is a little messy and a little goopy. I know it's not perfect, but this will do. Alright, making sure our mating surface here is nice and clean. We can go ahead and put our differential cover back on. Now, when you're putting it on, make sure you just put it on and don't try to move it about. Just put it on and do your best to not mush it around, because you really don't want to disturb. We can put two of these bolts in to kind of hold it in place so we can go get our tightening implement. Alright, and when we're tightening these, we want to go in a cross pattern as best we can. So we want to go from here to here, move over, from here to here, move over, from here to here. So we want to try to tighten this thing on as evenly as possible. Alright, got my torque wrench here set to 33 foot-pounds. And again, we're going to do in a cross pattern as best we can. There we go. All these are properly torqued, and if you don't have a torque wrench, you can rent one from a AutoZone for free, I believe, or you could just do them tight. 33 is decently tight, so put a little pressure on there. Alright, so now that the silicone rubber is fully cured to what it says on the label, ours was 2 hours, so we let that sit for 2 hours. It is ready to accept fluid, and we are using 75W40 full synthetic. Link is down below in the description, and I have affixed a tube here to the end of it to make my life a little easier, because maneuvering the bottle around is a little difficult. So we're going to squeeze that in, and the way you know that is full is because it will start oozing out of this hole. It'll just start coming out. That's how you know it's full. It's really easy. Once it starts coming out just like that, you can actually see the level down in there if you look in there real closely, but it is full, so we are ready to get our drain plug. All right, I'll clean that off there. And then we can replace the threaded plug here. First tightening it by hand and then grabbing a ratchet. We're going to tighten that plug up to 22 foot-pounds, just like that.
So that is how to replace your rear differential fluid in a Ford F-150 from the year 2002 or any other Ford 8.8. I am fairly certain, or at least a more modern 8.8. I don't know if this applies to the stuff from back in the olden days, but this definitely applies to this year F-150. It was fairly easy, fairly straightforward and approachable. Make sure you dump your used differential fluid at an EPA rated facility, but other than that, it's very approachable and fairly easy. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them down below, and if you're interested in this type of content, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell, and I will see you next time.